Welcome, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman. A few years ago, I wrote and performed a solo show called The Edge of Every Day, which was an exploration of the rough edges and contradictions we all face and grapple with. The show hit a nerve, and the relevance of the topic would only grow over time, more than I could have foreseen. So, here we are. Real talk with real people, sharing stories and perspectives that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe, on the edge of every day. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. We are live in the Hive. Thank you for joining me on this, the 25th episode of The Edge of Every Day here on talkradio.nyc. Oh my goodness, 25. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, and for those of you who don't know me yet, I encourage you to check out my bio on talkradio.nyc, or, of course, visit my website, sandrabargman.com. And please tune in to any of my previous episodes with my inspiring guests. In a nutshell, this show is about celebrating triumphs, pushing boundaries, and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradoxes and contradictions live in our beliefs and our understandings, both about ourselves and about the world around us. Listen, we live in turbulent times, and we are coming to understand that life isn't simply black or white. It must be an embrace of both, and the more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks again for tuning in. And without further ado, it is time to introduce our guests this evening. Christi Cooper is an Emmy award-winning cinematographer with a PhD in neuroscience and an MS in microbiology. Christi communicates complex issues through storytelling and visual narrative to create human connection and impact around the most pressing issues of our time. Christi left a successful academic and research career in Europe to obtain an MFA in science and natural history filmmaking. In 2011, Christi co-created Stories of Trust, calling for climate recovery, a 10-part documentary series featuring youth plaintiffs suing their state governments over climate change, with Witness, a social justice, human rights organization focused on using film for social change. She most recently directed and produced the feature documentary Youth v. Gov, now streaming on Netflix. Christi is first a proud and committed mother, as well as the inaugural SF Film Vulcan Productions Environmental Film Fellow, and the first Jacob Burns Film Center focus on nature, artist in resident. Chantal is a Montreal-born, New York-based playwright whose work focuses on the intersection of science, policy, art, and climate change. She founded Arts and Climate Initiative over a decade ago, and in her capacity as artistic director, has been instrumental in getting the theater and educational communities, as well as audiences in the U.S. and abroad, to engage in climate action through programming that includes live events, talks, publications, workshops, national and international convenings, and a worldwide distributed theater festival. In addition to her own plays, she is the co-editor of an anthology of short plays about the climate crisis titled Lighting the Way. Her work has been presented in a dozen countries around the world and has received many prestigious awards. She's currently writing a series of 8 plays, the ArcticCycle, that look at the social and environmental changes taking place in the 8 Arctic states. In 2019, she was named one of the 8 trailblazers who are changing the climate conversation by Audubon magazine. Hello and welcome, Christi and Chantal.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you for this wonderful introduction.
Oh, you are most welcome. It's a fabulous introduction for 2 fabulous ladies, and welcome to you, Christi, as well.
Thank you so much, Sandra. It's an honor to be here. An honor to be here with you as well, Chantal.
Same.
Well, I'm truly honored to have you both. This is great to have 2 complete warrior women for the climate movement. It's not, I normally have one, and I'm very jazzed to have you both on. So, I like to always share how I meet people, and Chantal and I met in New York City at a talk that she gave, and it also included a presentation of one of her fantastic plays. And I have since been following Chantal and had her as one of my first guests on my podcast. So it's fantastic to have you back, Chantal. And I met the wonderful Christi Cooper through a mutual friend of ours, Leslie Michaels, who has her own podcast. So shout out to her, Women We Should Know podcast. And Leslie has a book coming out. She's going to be a guest on this podcast on the 6th of June. Fantastic. So you both have spectacular projects going on. One of the things that I so loved about this, and it was such a great learning experience for me to really plug into it, is not only does your work, of course, educate and inspire and move people, hopefully, out of overwhelm and apathy into action, but also it's firmly grounded in the understanding that the climate issue, the issue of climate change, is also a human rights issue. And I think a lot of people who are interested in climate change and learning more about it really need to grab onto that understanding, that it's an overarching umbrella over all of these issues. Would you not agree, Christi?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, climate change is the human rights issue of our lifetime. I mean, it basically encompasses, most of the issues that we're experiencing around the world, and that frontline communities are experiencing, whether that's food insecurity, war, migration. There's so many.
Economy.
Yeah.
You name it. Name it. Well, so let's dive in with you first, Christi, about your incredible movie, Youth v. Gov, your award-winning independent film, Youth v. Gov, the story of Juliana versus the United States of America, constitutional lawsuit, and the 21 American youth ages 14 to 25 who are taking on the world's most powerful government. Since 2015, the legal nonprofit Our Children's Trust has been representing these youth in their landmark case against the U.S. government for violating their constitutional rights to life, liberty, and personal safety and property through their willful actions in creating the climate crisis they will inherit. So please, you were in on this story very, very early on. Please tell us the history of your involvement in creation of this film.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned in the introduction the series of 10 short films that I worked on back in 2011, 2012, the Stories of Trust. And that was kind of my introduction to this whole, to youth suing their governments. At the time, those were youth who were suing their state governments. But those youth were also all represented by Our Children's Trust. So Julia Olson, who when you watch the film, you'll see she's this brilliant attorney who represents these young people.
Phenomenal. Her presence and it just with these kids and with the legal system was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, she's a very brilliant attorney. She founded her organization in 2010, with the goal to represent young people in climate litigation using the best available science. And she, on Mother's Day in 2011, filed cases, legal actions in every state across the country, as well as the first federal lawsuit. So as part of this campaign at that time with these state cases, together with Witness, there were these 10 short films that were created. So at the time I met Kelsey Juliana, who was suing the state of Oregon. She's now featured in Youth v. Gov, and she's the named plaintiff in this case. Also Shutes Scott Martinez, who is a young Aztec man from Colorado. That was when I met him. He was only 11 years old at the time. And Jamie Lynn Butler from the Navajo Nation. She was, I think she was 8 years old, I think, back in 2011 when we did the short film about her. So that was kind of my first introduction, into working with young people, and to also my first films about the legal system and climate litigation. And so it was a big, like, throughout those couple years of creating those shorts and working with those young people, I learned a lot through Witness about the ethics of storytelling from a human rights perspective and how we worked with youth and minors. And also I dug really deep into the legal aspects of climate litigation and learned so much. So in 2015, when they filed this new federal lawsuit, I was kind of on the in, and I knew the legal team. I knew some of these plaintiffs. I knew some of the families. I was, very interested and curious to see where the case was going to go, because the first federal case was pretty quickly dismissed. And when they made it all the way, they filed in August of 2015. Immediately thereafter, the entire fossil fuel industry and the National Association of Manufacturing filed a motion to intervene in the case, and they wanted to co-defend the case along with the government against these 21 youth. So there was a hearing for this motion to dismiss by the fossil fuel industry in March of 2016. And Judge Coffin ruled in the youth's favor and denied the intervener's motion to dismiss. So that was the first moment where I realized, I think this case is going somewhere. There's more to this. Julia had gone back to the drawing board and kind of she realized that this is a constitutional issue. And the first case was not based on the Constitution. It was solely based on the public trust doctrine. So this second case was much more involved. It was, it's very heavily focused on constitutional rights, and the public trust doctrine is it's an element still in this case. So that was the moment that I went to Julia and said, can I follow this? Will you give me, exclusive access to tell this story and permission to work with these plaintiffs, and, will you give me access, basically? And so that's been my journey ever since, was, just trying to be wherever I could be when climate events were happening to the young people, whether it was forest fires or droughts or hurricanes or floods, trying to be there to tell those parts of their harm, which is a big part of their case. But also to be there for the legal moments, for the moments in the case, for these moments where they're building their family and their rapport. And yeah, you can see it all in the film.
Absolutely. You can see it all in the film. Well, something we're going to need to go to break, but something that I'm completely blown away by is you're being in the right place at the right time in terms of the youth. You've been mentioning that over and over, and working with them, and the joy of working with youth. And that's a dovetail between the two of you. And as this youth movement explodes and through social media, and finally the buck stopping with this group of people, young people who understand we're at the end. We can't shove this under the carpet 1 second longer, and we have all of the knowledge and all of the platforms to get this information out in a way that the three of us might not have had when we were young. Anyway, we need to take a break. When we come back, Christi will comment on that, her working with the young people, and then we will move into Chantal's play, No More Harveys, that just had a successful debut in Anchorage, Alaska. Stay tuned on The Edge of Every Day.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours
on the edge of every day. And we are back with Christi Cooper and Chantal Bilodeau. For those of you who are listening in, we're having a lovely little chat during the commercial break about one of the plaintiffs in Christie's movie is from Anchorage, and Chantal just was in Anchorage for No More Harveys and is going to be there again with another project that she is doing that we will talk about. So yeah, that just being, this is the thing that jumped out at me. I just recently watched, I couldn't be there in person to see Chantal's glorious play, but I was able to watch it live streamed. And I talked to her afterwards, and I said, the thing that jumps out, that dovetails so much, the most for me, with your two projects is the youth element and the power of that. Mm. Yeah. And so, Christi, it must have been quite something to see all these young people while the movement was exploding, while you're making all these movies.
You know, it was really interesting when these youth filed these first cases in 2011. That was these were the very first ever youth-led climate litigations. And when I started first filming with these kids, the inception of Youth v. Gov, there was not a youth movement at the time. There was not, there had been one People's Climate March in 2012, but there had not been a youth movement really present there or organized or something like that. And it was in 2016 that there was the very first youth-led climate march. I believe that was 2016. So, I've seen kind of over the last 12 years, really, the birth of this youth movement. And, that's not to say that youth have not always been active and been involved in this, but I think there's something that's happened in our society and where we are. And I think the urgency around the climate crisis, that people are listening to the youth now. And I think storytelling has a lot to do with that. And I would love to hear what Chantal thinks about that as well. Like, people listen to these kids, the short films that we did, we because they were based on the young people standing declarations of basically explaining what their harm was. They were presented as evidence, in quotation marks, for their cases, and the judges had to watch these short films. And it was, I think, probably one of the first times of using storytelling in film, like in the courtroom. And we were able to hand deliver a DVD to President Obama at the time, and judges watched their stories, they listened to them. We had some of the kids were on conservative talk show radio, talking about their story. And there's something different about young people, even going to city commission meetings and speaking to their representatives, like the, mayors and the city commissioners, they stop and they listen. And a lot of people are still dismissing them and minimizing their involvement or their knowledge or their concerns. But I think the vast majority of people are now accepting that young people need a seat at the table, not only to have their voices heard, but to be part of the solutions. They have ideas, and this is their world to inherit. And, when it comes to climate change, they are the ones that are going to be most disproportionately impacted by
indeed.
The decisions that we have made.
And it lifts it out of partisanship because everybody has kids, no
Right.
matter what side of the aisle you on. So, yeah, weigh in, please, Chantal. And then I want to dive into No More Harveys and the young woman, the one actress that you worked with who carried this incredible play that you wrote. So
Yeah,
dive in about young people.
I think it's easier to believe that young people don't have a very selfish agenda, right? Which is harder to believe when you have adults trying to push something. So that's my guess as to why people are listening to youth, and we're not listening to scientists and to everybody else who has tried to sound the alarm before. There's a genuine, there's just something. And also, just like you said, Christi, it's their world to inherit. And so they're going to feel most of the impact. And we were part of the harm of, we, like, consciously or not, we participate in causing the harm.
And social media, I think, is also a key, instrumental, and of course that weaves into, technology weaves into your play. So tell us, Chantal, about No More Harveys and the themes that you wove in, and what was the spark for this particular play?
Yeah, so No More Harvey is the third play of a series of 8 plays about the Arctic, and it's clearly about the U.S. And the idea came in 2017 when Hurricane Harvey hit Louisiana and Texas. And then just a few months later, I think it was 3 or 4 months later, the whole thing about Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood came down. And to me, that was really big. I was like, Harvey and Harvey, it's the same systems that are creating both, like, isn't everybody seeing that? And it was such a perfect theatrical device also to use the name Harvey. And so that's the inspiration for the play, was trying to connect. And also there was a lot of talk in the climate movement about connecting social justice with environmental justice, and being able to talk about these things as connected, as opposed to, I'm talking about race over here, and I'm talking about economic equality over here, and I'm talking about the environment over here. So the play is a one-person play. There's only one actress on stage, and but she has an Alexa with her, the Amazon virtual assistant.
It's fabulous.
And so it's the story of her journey from New York to Anchorage in Alaska, and of trying to make sense of all of the Harveys in this world. The first one being her own husband, Harvey, who became physically abusive. And so she's running away from that. And then she's trying to deal with all of the Harveys, like Harvey the hurricane, Harvey the Hollywood producer. And she talks about 2 women that she wants to, 2 friends she has in Alaska that she wants to reconnect with, who also have been dealing with their own Harveys. So it's a story of her. And I'm sorry, I forgot the most important character, which is a whale. So she looks up to a whale and the evolutionary path of the whales, who have come from 50 million years ago, when they were mammals and they lived on land and they had legs and teeth, and then they migrated to the ocean. So it's also a story about migrating, because the whale migrated and has survived everything that has happened in the last 50 million years. And so she tries to figure out what is the difference between migrating and fleeing. And migrating is when you have a destination, you have something to go forward to, and fleeing is just running away from danger. So I don't think I'm doing a great job at, because I'm explaining it the way the play is, which is kind of all over.
So maybe we shouldn't call it climate migration. It should be climate fleeing.
Well, yeah, Dwayne, I love that you touched on the whole migration versus fleeing. I mean, it really drives home the issue of, what everyone, so many people around the world, even in the United States, we think it's not going to happen here, but of course it's absolutely going to happen here. Florida, California, the need for migration, et cetera, et cetera. Well, and the whale was, again, it was this understanding of the diversity, both of you, the understanding, the weaving together all of the issues and understanding the diversity. And in your case, Chantal, you weave in other beings, other sentient beings, and as you have done in some of your other plays as well. So, Chantal, sticking with your the run of the show's over. So, what's the play is going to be published, and it will be available to do along with your other plays. And what are your two other plays that are published?
So the first one is called Sila. It's set in Canada. Second one the title is Forward. That one is set in Norway. And No More Harveys will be published. It will come out towards the end of 2022, at the end of the year.
Excellent. And before I ask you about the next play, what will be number 4? I love Sila. What the word Sila? Please share with our listeners what that is.
Yeah, Sila is an Inuktitut word, which is the language of the Inuit in northern Canada and the Canadian Arctic. And it means a combination of breath, wind, climate. It's the place where we come from and the place where we return.
So beautiful.
It's a beautiful concept.
I can only imagine what it was like to delve into that. What was it like working with the people of the Arctic?
It was a huge. I mean, Christi, when you said you had to learn about the legal system, I mean, this was the same for me. The first play I had to learn a lot about climate science, but also discover this whole world, the Arctic, that I knew nothing about. I had never been there. And it's so foreign in a way. It's so complete. At least in Canada, I think Norway is a bit more similar to the rest of the country because they have more infrastructure. But the Canadian Arctic is very isolated, and so it's a whole new world to discover and a whole new culture to discover.
And your care for the people comes through in your writing.
Thank you.
It's really quite beautiful. So we have just enough time. We've got 1 minute. What's the idea for the 4th play?
You can't ask me that.
Well, you do have an idea for it.
I do, but I'm not going to say it.
Excellent.
But I will say.
Which country does it take place in?
It's Iceland.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, on that note, we will take a break. And when we come back, what's next? I want to hear about, how the two of you, with these incredible careers, just refocused your lenses and got right into the climate change issue. When we come back with Chantal Bilodeau and Christi Cooper on the Edge of Everyday. Stay tuned.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge of every day.
And we are back with Christi and Chantal. Thank you, Christi. It depends on the theaters. We're having little chats in our commercial breaks, and the question being, how does Chantal get her work seen out in the world? Because it's theatrical, there's some there live streaming issues and union issues. It depends on the theater, I think like with distribution. So it's not quite as cut and dry and getting people, all of the actors to be in agreement, et cetera, et cetera. Did you get you got a recording of it though, Chantal, for your archival purposes? Yes?
I will. Yes.
Good. Okay. So I want to dive in. Chantal, we'll start with you and then we'll move to Christi. How did you make this lens shift into, you know what, I want my work to be about climate change rather than just overall playwriting, which is a beautiful thing, but.
I think it's a little bit like Christi again. It was like being at the right place at the right time. I took a trip to Alaska because I had a friend there and he had always said, you should come and visit, and I had never gone. And it was just life-changing. It was so incredibly beautiful. It's so it's like a postcard everywhere you look. People live very close to their land. You know, they don't have the same. In New York City, we're surrounded by concrete, so it's a very different relationship. And it was at a time where climate change was being talked about a bit more in the mainstream media, and so I thought I was going to do one play, and then I got so immersed into that world that now I've committed to do 8, hopefully before I die.
You'll totally do it. But Al Gore's movie had come out. That was the
year before. Yes.
Yeah, and that really was a game changer. At least for me, it was a game changer to get things on my radar. Well, and Christi, you shared part of this story, but you know, how does somebody who's doing research in Sweden, go, you know what, I want to be a climate change filmmaker?
Well, I didn't set out to be a climate change filmmaker, and I don't know if I necessarily call myself that. I have done quite a few climate change films, but I've also done other work. But yeah, so my focus when I was a scientist was in the field of stem cells. And
yes.
And I worked in Germany and in Sweden for 19 years. And when I was in Germany, it was the Bush-Kerry election. And this was a moment in, U.S. history where all of a sudden there was a scientific topic that was driving policy or driving political discussion and discourse. And it was all about stem cells. And I remember being so dismayed by the rhetoric and the, really false information and misinformation that was being spewed here in the US. And as a scientist working in the stem cell field, I felt really drawn to what does that look like to be a communicator about the work that I do. And we had already kind of started doing much more of that layperson and community outreach around the work that we were doing. I'll skip kind of forward. I joined an EU consortium of travel to create traveling science fairs, and it was interdisciplinary. We were working with historians and psychologists and all kinds of really cool disciplines to talk with people in the community about science. And then I decided I wanted to leave academia and figure out a way to integrate the communication and the storytelling aspect into the scientific background that I had. So that's what brought me back to the US to get my MFA in science and natural history filmmaking. In my first year in grad school, in the spring of 2010, was when the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster happened. And I packed up my car. I live in Montana. I packed up my car with a friend of mine, Devin. We put all of our film gear in and we drove down to Louisiana with the intention to help the scientists get the word out about what was happening. And this was before the oil had come into the Gulf or come into the Bay. And so we headed straight towards Southwest Louisiana outside of New Orleans. We connected with scientists. They took us out into their boats and they were water sampling and air sampling, and we were documenting all of this. And we started talking with the guys who were actually captaining the boat, and they were two brothers, and they started telling us about their story. They are Native Americans, live outside of the levee system. They're from the Atakapa-Ishak tribe. And they were captaining these boats because they had been pulled out of the bay as shrimpers and oystermen because the bays had been closed to shrimping. They were getting ready to have their last day of shrimping. And they invited us to go with them on their last night of shrimping. And so we went with them and shrimped their last night. And then they invited us to stay with them. And we lived with them for 3 weeks in their home and watched as the oil came in. And they took us all around and showed us the devastation of what the oil industry has done to this part of the world. Tens of thousands of miles of oil pipelines that run through these marshlands. And to just witness the devastation of saltwater intrusion and land erosion and, truly a marginalized community and in the face of all of these disasters. And, they had barely just survived Hurricane Katrina, and now we're facing this oil disaster. So that was for me really this pivotal moment of realization that yes, science is a part of this. Science will always probably be a part and a heart of what I do. And maybe perhaps is part of how I tell a story, but at the heart of it, I'm so drawn to the human. I'm drawn to the human story and the human aspect and how we as humans are woven into these stories. And that is really the heart of it. I think I'm more drawn to justice than anything, all forms of justice. And that was what I realized. And that has since been my focus.
Oh, beautiful. And Chantal, yeah, I'm sure that applies to you as well, and your love of science and your working with scientists and being drawn to the social justice. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, it was, I went the other way around, not that I know that much about science, but it was interesting coming from the arts to connect with scientists and there's many scientists I've met who I would ask, what is the one thing you wish people knew about what you do that people don't know? And I always get fascinating answers. And then it's my job then to how can I communicate that? How can I help get that out there? And I feel like it deepens stories, science, but also everything that's going on socially. It deepens stories because for a while there, we were very focused on family in the theater. There was a lot of, throughout the 50s and 60s, a lot was about the family and dysfunctional families and relationships. And I think it's nice to expand that and take the whole world in.
Absolutely. Well, and with science being under such fire right now, I mean, the importance of bringing science to light like this in a way that is captured through storytelling and is woven in with the emotional stories and the environmental stories. You can't negate it.
And science is its own, to me, science is, it's poetry, it's its own poetry.
Oh,
and
I love
so you just capture it in another art form, and it doesn't have to be shared as hard data. It can be shared as the whole philosophy behind it and the poetry that it brings up.
That's spectacular. Christi, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen with the pandemic the importance of science as part of our daily life, and I think the last 2 decades, our country in particular, the U.S., I've witnessed life in other, at least in European countries, and how science is approached, and we have really lost our general public quest for understanding science and it being part of our daily conversation, and I think like you said, Chantal, it being poetry, it being its own story, I think we as storytellers, like to weave that's science, because I mean, look what happened the last 2 years. Science was such a part of our daily life and such a part of this whole pandemic story that we are going to be telling for decades to come. That I think we can no longer like disconnect the science and the facts and how that impacts our lives and how we need to understand it in order to find solutions and to move forward. And we need to find ways to accurately and effectively communicate that too.
And I would take it one step further, that science is so poetic, and for me personally, with the art and the spiritual connection and the understanding, the sacredness, and that science, the connection of science and quantum understanding with our spiritual understandings, with getting back to the notion that our earth is sacred and bringing that philosophical and spiritual understanding into this poetic, creative, scientific understanding as well, that it really is all connected, interconnected. Well, we only have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to take us into break a little sooner so we can just pick that time up in our last section. When we come back with Christi Cooper and Chantal Bilodeau, we're going to hear about what's next for each of them, find out where we can learn more about their online presence, etc., and get some final words of wisdom from each of them when we come back on The Edge of Every Day.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble! On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge
of every day. And we are back with Chantal and Christi. So Chantal, your next project, Earth Intention, a Climate Cabaret. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is? And I can help.
Yeah. Yes. Because it's a collaboration.
It is.
So climate, so often when we talk about the climate, it's very negative stories that we hear. It's stories about disasters, it's stories about policy failure. And so I wanted to do something with music, have a cabaret, have performers tell us how they connect to the earth, and find songs to sing that would make us reflect and feel the earth without having like a whole lot of conversation for a change. So it's taking place in the Catskills, and it will be live streamed, so it's available everywhere on May 21st and 22nd. And
Yes.
It's called Earth Intention, a Climate Cabaret.
Fantastic. I love that title. Very proud of that title. Yes, it's happening in a salon space, a private salon space in the Catskills, and it will be live streamed. And there are 7 performers. Myself, I introduced the show, and the intention of the show. We have woven in a variety of singers from different backgrounds, some singer-songwriter, musicians, Woodstock-based, some New York City cabaret people. We have indigenous, we have speakers. Interestingly enough, to our point about youth, 2 of our speakers are 25 and under, which I think is so spectacular. And on social justice and environmental justice, it just rocks. And it will be, May 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and Sunday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can get tickets for the live stream at Chantal's website, artsandclimate.com/Earth Intention. And all of that information.
.org.
I'm sorry? Oh, it's .org.
.org, yes.
I knew that. Yeah. I was just testing you. Yes, and all of that will be in the show notes as well. So really looking forward to that. So now, Christi, what message do you want people to take away from the movie? You mentioned 2 really wonderful things and something that I read. And what's going on with the case now?
Maybe I'll start first with what's going on with the case. So right. The film ends on a note with the Ninth Circuit Court decision, and kind of leaves a cliffhanger. And part of that is because we want people to get involved and want to know where the case is going. So the plaintiffs filed a motion to amend their complaint last March. Which is very common in lawsuits, and they wanted to amend their complaint more in line with the Ninth Circuit Court decision. So that they had that hearing last June. We are now waiting still since last June for Judge Aiken's decision in the district court as to whether or not she will allow them to amend that complaint. And basically what they're asking for the courts to do is to allow them to focus their complaint more on the declaratory relief aspect of their case, which is very similar to Brown versus Board of Education and how desegregation happened. It's first declaring that there is a constitutional right and that this right is being violated. So we'll wait to see what happens with Judge Aiken and what her decision is. We are hopeful that she's going to rule in their favor, at which point we'll see how the Biden administration responds. So far, the DOJ under the Biden administration has taken the same stance that the Trump administration has taken, which is basically preventing these kids from having their day in court. You see several hearings throughout the film, and not one of these hearings was the actual evidence being presented. They've all been procedural hearings. So they still have not gone to trial. They have not presented their evidence. And that is really, what they're asking for the courts to allow them to do. And they're also asking for the DOJ to allow them to do that. So we'll see what happens there. In terms of the messaging from the film, I think there's a lot of them. We've been talking about the power of the youth voice, and and that's a huge component of this film. The reason that they are youth in this case is because most of these kids could not vote when they sued the government. They, as children, as minors, they do not have a political say in our system. So the only recourse that they have is through the judicial system. And the judicial branch is there to protect us from harm by the other two branches of government. That's one of their roles. So I think, we really want people to understand the importance of the judicial system in helping to solve the climate crisis. And we also really want people to understand how we got here, and that this is not, people talk all the time about climate inaction and that our government has not acted on climate. You cannot have a constitutional claim based on inaction. So this case is about willful action, affirmative action that the government has taken in creating the climate crisis and supporting and promoting and, financing, subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. They have locked us into a fossil fuel-based energy system, which is now, dangerously harming these children's future. So we would love for, there's so much to learn in this film. You really can learn about the judicial system and about our government and the history of how we got here. And we just really want people to become engaged and realize this is not a partisan issue. All of our administrations, the past 60 years, have done this, and this is not about Democrats.
And it's not a political issue.
It's not a political issue. This is about our rights, all of our rights as citizens of the United States, and what the responsibility of our government is in protecting us.
Yeah. And so, what advice do you give to people? I mean, again, for someone like me, I can say, here's a resource. Go take climate reality leadership training, and you'll learn, for those people who want to be more educated, that's a resource. Those of us who want to do more than, recycling is a beautiful thing. Getting the steps that we have all learned is getting out of doing whatever we can, small steps, staying engaged is a beautiful thing, but we have to up the ante. And to your point, it's getting involved with the government. What steps do you, and supporting the people that want to get involved with the government, like these young people, what steps, what do you suggest for people to do, steps to take that can really continue to move this up and forward?
Well, I think because this case is still an ongoing case in the courts, it's still live, the plaintiffs need a lot of support. There's many moments.
And there's people that weren't in the movie that are still in cases as well.
There are. So our Children's Trust is also representing state cases. There's 7 current state cases pending in the United States right now. Folks can go to ourchildrenstrust.org and learn more about those cases. There's also international cases around the world where youth are suing their governments based on their constitutions. So, I think supporting youth in this work that they're doing, there's so many ways that we as adults and people with power can support them, whether that's driving them to city commission meetings so that they can testify, training them on how to testify, training them on how to speak to their leaders, providing spaces for them to come together where they can have safe spaces to organize and to take their actions. Our Children's Trust, if people go to Our Children's Trust and follow them, there will be periodically asks for how folks can support these cases and the young people. And really our North Star goal was really to help and to encourage folks to hold their governments accountable when it comes to the climate crisis, from their local representatives, all the way up to our federal government. And there's so many ways that can happen.
Amen. Great resources. So people can find YouthVGov. Obviously, we've mentioned it's streaming. Congratulations, getting it onto Netflix. Yes.
Thank you.
And your website?
And we have educational distribution, and folks can find that on our website. It's youthvgovfilm.com. So if you're interested in doing community screenings or getting this film into schools or law schools, universities, we do have educational distribution through Good Docs. You can go through gooddocs.org or come to our website, and we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah, and I'd love to have that at my salon space, The Plum. And Chantal and I could do something in conjunction with a screening of that movie.
That would be fun.
It would be totally fun. And Chantal has your website.
artsandclimate.org, and that's where you can find out about Earth Intention in May, 21st and 22nd of May.
And you also have an incubator coming up in Anchorage, correct?
Yes, that's a 5-day think tank / workshop for artists, activists, scientists, educators, anyone who's interested in the intersection of arts and climate and wants to dig into that a bit deeper.
I want to come. I've never been. Hello. I've never
yes.
been. I've never met you. Well, you and I have talked about this. Yes. So artsandclimate.org. Excellent. Yes. All right. And those of you who are listening in, any last words of wisdom from our two ladies? Chantal, you first.
Think about what you're passionate about, and then find how the climate is affecting that, and get involved.
That's brilliant advice. Find and how climate is affecting what you're passionate about. Brilliant. Yes. Christi, any last words?
Yeah, I would say stay engaged and, talk about the issues that you care about, and find your tribe, find your community, find that support that you need in order to. The world's really hard right now. There's a lot of things that are
very
really
overwhelming.
Hard. And you need that support. We need to uplift each other and hold hands while we're doing it. And I just encourage everyone to find that support network that they need to do that work.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ladies. Thank you so much for joining me on the Edge of Every Day and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your creativity and your storytelling. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for those of you who are listening in, thank you for spending this hour with us. Remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. See you next time.
This is our last dance. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. Under pressure. Under pressure.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargeman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
uninformed about menopause and how it impacts on your life? Hi, I'm Pat Duckworth, women's health strategist and host of the Hot Women Rock radio show, empowering women leaders at menopause. Join me every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. UK time on talkradio.nyc for interviews with inspirational women who will share their top tips to rock your world.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.